Hi, welcome, Baruchim Abayim to Kol El Ahavat Israel. Thank you for joining us on Tuesday. Hayom Be'ezrat Hashem. Today we do our special class as usual of partners in Torah for Parashat Chukat. And as usual, Be'ezrat Hashem, we want to say a special thanks to our sponsor and our partners of Torah Foundation. Be'ezrat Hashem, we want to say thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Selwyn Isako. God bless them and all the committee that have the Partners in Torah Foundation. As we mentioned before, this is a foundation that started over 4 or 5, almost 5 years ago, and Baruch Hashem, we reach over 1,500 cities every week. And they're also involved with the Shabbat project, Baruch Hashem. They do a lot of amazing things. So we're honored to be part of this on a weekly basis and to spread Torah and, of course, have you all on board. So Be'ezrat Hashem, we want to say also Refuah Shelema to Baruch Hai ben Chaya Miriam, and Refuah Shelema to Zehavit Batova, Refuah Shelema to Moshe ben Marcel, רפואה שלמה to עליזה בת קרן, יצחק בן אלה, רפואה שלמה to פלורי בת רחל, ענת בת זיזל, בת שבע בת עזיזה, חיים בן רמונד, הקדוש ברוך הוא ירפא אותם, אורי אור בן ענת, פנחס בן רחל, ובעזרת השם יחד עם כל חולי עמך ישראל. Today we also want to dedicate this shiur. A friend of ours in San Diego, his brother-in-law, זיכרונו לברכה, passed away. לעילוי נשמת אפרים יעקב בן ציון הכהן, from משפחת כהן, and בעזרת השם also לעילוי נשמת אבי מורי ניסים בן פרחיה, אמי מורתי רחל בת רוחמה, אחי מאיר ואברהם, לעילוי נשמת גבריאל בן שרה, טובה בת יפה, עינב בת שרה, גאולה בת שרה. And in honor, of course, of today is the Mitzad HaDegalim, is the celebration of the flags of Israel. So we want to say thank you to all the amazing Jewish people in Israel and all over the world that went out to celebrate this amazing day with the pride of the Israeli flag. The Israeli flag, by the way, just in general knowledge, is what we call Magen Avraham and Magen David, is the two triangles that protects us from above and below, and the two lines represent the heaven and earth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu created for the people of Israel. So Parashat Chukat, again, I want to just iterate. Chukat is a parasha that came on two different time segments of the history of the Jewish people in the desert. So first and foremost, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu have certain laws that's called Chukat. Chukat means a supernal law. It's something we don't really understand, but we have to do, because that's what Hashem said to do. One of them is the red heifer that we're going to learn about. So as we mentioned, the red heifer is really the beginning, the second year of the people Israel travels in the desert, which was 2,449. That's really when the Paraduma comes into play. And the first one was done on the 2nd of Nisan, which is basically after a day after the inauguration of the tabernacle. It was to purify the tabernacle and to also purify the people that dealt with the burial and carrying of the two bodies of the sons of Aaron and Nadav and Avihu that passed away on the 1st of Nisan at the nighttime of right before the morning of the inauguration night. So this part comes in the beginning, and then we move forward 39 years ahead into a year 2487, and that's really the story of the passing of Miriam and the disappearance of the well of Miriam, and of course the passing of Aaron. And that will be in Miriam, as we know, mentioned and passed on the 10th of Nisan, 2487, a year before the entrance to the land of Israel. And Aharon, her brother, will pass on the month of Av, on the 1st of Av. So this is in general terms what's this parasha as far as chronology. And we know there is a law in the Torah, and mukdam u'meuchar b'Torah. There's no such thing as early and late in the Torah. The Torah is not written in chronology terms. It brings every divine story that happened in order to learn and what happened in that times and how we can connect it to every day of our life. So the Torah says, of course, Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe ve'el Aaron le'emor, Zot Chukat Torah. So we see that Hashem says, Zot Chukat Torah. This is really the entire Torah is one chok. You know, Chukat, the word Chukat means chok and Torah, the law and Torah. So the entire mitzvot of the Torah comes under one, what we call Chukat. Because, you know, when we're about to deal here with the essence of the Torah, Hashem says, Zot Chukat Torah asher tziva Adonai le'emor. As we know, Kadosh Baruch Hu is giving Moshe now throughout the desert to teach the people of Israel of everything they need to know before they come to the land of Israel. And he says, talk to the people of Israel and take this red heifer, a female that has no blemish, and bamum, asher lo aleh ol. So, you know, this is in essence something that, you know, we have to understand. Until today, by the way, there was 9 red heifers that came throughout the history of the world. And as we mentioned, the first one was with Moshe Rabbeinu and Elazar Kohen, the son of Aharon, that basically brought in the red heifer and the ashes and everything that needs to do. And as we mentioned, this is a very, very mitzvah that we don't really understand how a baby, a female calf that's 2 to 3 years old, we'll talk about the understanding why is it 3. The Torah says 3, but of course the Gemara says 2 by the Rabbi Horkenes, and we'll see that even Hashem agrees with him. But before we get to that, we know the Torah says, I want you to take this red heifer and sacrifice it, and then I want you to mix with it certain things, which is basically the cedar wood, the hyssop, the crimson thread, and then burn them together with the cow and utilize these ashes to purify a person that is impure. So this is an amazing thing. Like this red heifer can purify impure, but at the same time can impure the pure. So it's very much kind of, you know, a definition of Chukat. So we don't understand, again, many things Hashem says. For an example, the mitzvah of this, the mitzvah of Yebum, you know, when a brother dies and his brother is not married, is a mitzvah for the second brother to marry the widow, to continue the name of the family. There's a lot of mitzvot that we don't understand. Shatnez, the mixing of wool and linen, a lot of, you know, a few mitzvot like this that we have no understanding. Or to send the mother, you know, birds from the nest and take the eggs, you know, things that just makes no sense to us because we really don't understand, but that will make sense very soon. So we know Hashem says, take this red heifer that is a temimah. Temimah means very pure. You know, Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching the people of Israel what's the essence of this kind of red cow, this red heifer. And, you know, we know Abraham, Zichrono Livracha, Abraham Avinu, you know, when he was privileged to the information that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to him, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah and the 3 other cities, 5 cities altogether. Abraham was very humbled by Hashem discussing with him this. And of course, Abraham tried to save them, asking if there is, you know, 50 people, meaning 10 people for each minyan. There is, you know, 10 people that pray to Hashem, even though they were not Jewish. Hashem says, if there is, please, we'll save them. And then, of course, he went down to 45, 40, 30, 35, 20, 10. At the end, it was just one that was worth saving. His nephew Lot, and his family, the wife and the 2 daughters. So we know that when Abraham was privy to this information, Abraham Avinu says to Hashem, basically, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who am I? I'm nothing but afar va'efer. I'm nothing but, the earthly, ground and the ashes of a fire. But really what the Kabbalah says, this is where Abraham secured this mitzvah of red heifer. Because, Abraham Avinu, he knew the entire Torah, as we mentioned, the Torah that was given already, before the world was even created, 974 generation, the Gemara will tell us in Masechet Shabbat 88:2. And Abraham knew the lot of secrets of the Torah, and he says, I want to one day provide our children with this amazing mitzvah in order to purify the Mikdash, purify the tabernacle. And of course, he said, this is really, in essence, what Abraham was saying. He was humiliating himself. He says, I'm so humble that Hashem is discussing with me this. Who am I? I'm nothing but, dust of the earth and ashes of a burn. But really, this is exactly how we're going to have this process. As we said, the Torah says that you have to bring this red heifer that has no blemish in it. The word blemish, by the way, in Hebrew is mum. It's also numerical code Elohim, meaning God. Elohim in numerical code is 86. And also it's what we call mum. There's no blemish in it. When you bring that, you have to have such a cow, red heifer, that a female one, to come and atone for the people of Israel. Also, the Gemara will tell us that this red heifer came to atone for the golden calf, because this is a female red heifer, is the mother of the golden calf that we use. And of course, we know that it's red because of what the gold was used and became red to make this impurity of the golden calf, came the mother to atone for it. And of course, it was given to Elazar, the son of Aaron, and not to Aaron, because Aaron had his hands in making the golden calf. He basically helped, but not in a sense to do chaz v'chalila anything bad. It was that to save the people of Israel and to earn time for Moshe Rabbeinu to return. And as we mentioned, this mum, it has to be temimah, it has to be very, very pure, that has nothing, no yoke was raised on it. And of course, that she's purely red, and she has to be 3 years old. And of course, Abraham Avinu, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they knew and known to be very pure. And Yaakov Avinu says, Ish tamim yoshev ohalim, Ish tam yoshev ohalim. Tam is Torah and mitzvot, meaning that this red heifer will be the same thing to the Chukat HaTorah, this for the entire Torah and mitzvot, that Hashem will bring this opportunity to pure the people of Israel. So as we mentioned, this parah, this red heifer, come to do many things within the people of Israel. And as I said before, 9 of them already came. The 10th one, Be'ezat Hashem, will come with Mashiach. I understand from a few sources that they already found, I think, 2 of them around the world, one in Central America and one in Israel. And Be'ezat Hashem will be happy to have the 10th and final one very soon, Be'ezat Hashem. So we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu says Zot HaTorah, this is the Torah. When the Torah is raised and opened up before, in some cases in Ashkenaz, or and after the reading of the Torah in the Ashkenaz, and before with the Sephardim, you open the Torah and you raise and you turn it 360 degrees. And we say Zot HaTorah, we lift our tzitzit with our small finger, and we say Zot HaTorah, this is the Torah. So Zot, by the way, our sages explain to us, the Baal HaTurim says, Zot in numerical code is 408, and it stands for the 3 elements that can save us from many problems in our lives. One of them is Mammon. Mammon in Gematria, meaning tzedakah, giving tzedakah, is 136. Voice, call in Hebrew is 136, and this is the tefillah. And of course, tzom which is fasting, ta'anit, is 136. Well, so it says 3 things can remove a decree of a bad decree, as we call tzedakah, tefillah, v'ta'anit, ma'avirim et ro'a gzera. Together, 136 times 3 is 408. Zot HaTorah. This is if you want to redeem yourself, or if you want to ask for forgiveness. They say those 3 elements can help remove a decree. You know, the Zohar Kadosh says when HaKadosh Baruch Hu decree on somebody good, it will never change. You'll get the good. It's a matter of when. It's when you really need it, not when you want it. I always say, ask for what you need, not what you want. Because sometimes what you want is not good for you. Continue the Zohar and says, what is the essence of this amazing thing? It's basically when you have this opportunity to pray to Hashem, and you can remove a bad decree. If a bad decree, chas v'chalila, if you've done a sin and you're about to be punished for it, if you do those 3 things, if you give tzedakah, if you pray to Hashem, and if you fast, you can actually remove this bad decree. So this is the word zot. And of course, we know after all said and done, the Torah says para aduma. Para aduma is basically numerical code is 341. 341, it stands for the word vehi rechoka. So King Solomon, who was wisest of all mankind, and since Adam Arishon, since the first Adam, nobody was as smart as King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, but except one, Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu understood the red heifer, and of course we know that King Solomon did not. He wrote about it in the book of Kohelet, and in chapter 7, verse 25, King Solomon wrote, Amarti echkema vehi rechoka mimeni. I know everything. I'm a very smart man. Hashem made me very, very smart. I know everything except that. Vehi rechoka gimatria para aduma. And she is far from me. The numerical code is red heifer, 341. Of course, we know the word Shlomo is le Moshe, meaning that only Moshe knew the secret. Shlomo could not understand. And of course, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he took Moshe Rabbeinu, after the passing of Miriam and Aaron, on the 7th of Adar, 2488, the Torah mentioned that he went up from he came out from the valley of Moab, and he went to Mount Nevo. Moab in numerical code is 49, and Nun is 50. Moshe reached all the 50 gates of wisdom. There are 50 gates of Bina. Only Moshe Rabbeinu was able to understand the entire secrets of the Torah. Shlomo HaMelech only reached 49 of them. So we know here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we mentioned, he says, En Bamum, who will be dealing with all this is the Levites and the Kohanim. As we mentioned, Mum is also Leviim in Gematria. Lamed Vav Yud Mem, Leviim is 86. That's where Hashem says, this tribe is for me, Veli. The Leviim is for Hashem. And they are also cannot have a blemishes. And the Kohen cannot have a blemish. When it comes to Kehuna, there's many things that the Kohen has to be. One of them is it cannot be Chaz v'Chalila, somebody is blind, or somebody that even one eye is closed, or somebody that has no arm, or somebody cannot walk, or has to be the perfection of humanity. Because when people come to see Hashem, and the Kohen Gadol is his servant in the Kodesh HaKodashim, in the Mikdash, in the tabernacle, or in the temple, they see the purity of this amazing holiness and really a divine sight that in awe of. So we have really, the Mum is come to cover all elements, from the red heifer through the Levites through the Kohanim. And of course, there's a story in the Gemara that really, when you have this kind of red heifer, it's worth a lot of money. The Gemara will tell us a story of an Ishmaelite, a Goy, that was lucky to have a red heifer amongst his cattle. and the messengers of Beit HaMikdash came to buy it from him in the first, if I'm not mistaken, in the second temple. And of course, he asked for a lot of money. At the time, it was 100 coins of gold. And the Rabbanim that came to check this red heifer, they checked it. They said, wow, okay, it's actually perfect. We'll come. We don't have this, but we'll come and get it. And when they're about to leave, said, no, actually 1,000 gold coin. His friend says to him, this is very, very important to them. They'll pay as much as you ask. And they say, okay, listen, we don't have it with us. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll bring you the 1,000 coins of gold for the red heifer. That night, this Ishmaelite and his friend did something to the red heifer. They put a yoke on it. They know that this is supposed to be, pure, kind of things. And they said, let's, destroy it for them. So when they buy it, they'll give us the money and cannot use it. So the Gemara says that the messengers of Beit HaMikdash came and they saw, and before they paid, they said, let us check it. Let us check this, female red heifer. And the moment they look her in the eyes and looked above the neck, they found two signs that the Gemara says if anybody put a yoke on it, this will happen and will be impure. And the two signs are that the red heifer will grow two black hairs and the eyes will be crossed. And when this Rabbanim looked at the red heifer, they noticed that, the two black hair appeared right at the back of the neck of the cow and her eyes were crossed and they canceled the deal. It says, you've done something to it. You're not supposed to. You put a yoke on it. This Arab guy, Ishmaelite, realized that he just lost 1,000 coins of gold over his stupidity and his friend's stupidity, and he ended up killing himself. Ken Yarbu, as we say, Be'ezrat Hashem. So we see that the red heifers came to atone, and as far as the process, as we mentioned before, this red heifer has to be burnt right across from the Temple Mount. Temple Mount, Hara Moriah. Across from it on the east side, there is Mount Olive. Mount Olive, before it became a cemetery, a long time ago when the second temple exists and the first temple, that's where they used to take the red heifers. And of course, they had to bring it to this Mount Olive, burn it, as we mentioned, with the elements that Kadosh Baruch Hu says, take the cedar wood, erez, as we mentioned in Hebrew, and then take the hypus, the ezov, and take the crimson thread, which is also the tolat shani. It's a worm that you have to burn them together with the cow. So, our sages explain what is this going on here. So we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that you can purify people, that, if, the Torah says, Zot Torah Adam ki yamut ba'ohel. If a person dies in the tent, in his home, whoever comes to this home or this tent is actually be impure for 7 days. You'll be tameh. So, our sages explain the Gaon Chida, Rabbi Chaim David Azulai, who was the student of the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, Rabbi Chaim Atar, explains Hashem utilized those three elements, basically, to have, what is the cedar wood? Cedar wood is, Etz Erez, they say, is the tallest tree. We know in Lebanon there was the tallest Arzeh HaLevanon, and we know the king of Lebanon, Melech Lebanon, Hiram, was a very good friend to King Solomon, and he supplied him with this, many, many hundreds of trees, erez, to build the first Beit HaMikdash. And King Solomon paid him back for everything, and also gave him a portion of the northern part of Israel called Emek Achula, the Achula Valley, which was all swamped. And of course, the king of Lebanon says, thank you, but no thank you, you can keep it. But, we know today is one of the most fertile lands in the earth. But of course, what is the cedar? The cedar represent the pride, the tallest. And what's the Azov, the hypest? Whatchamacallit, I'm sorry, hyssop is the bush that's actually the lowest level of what we call humility. We have the tallest, which is the cedar wood, the areas, like a redwood, so to speak. They grow up to 400 meters, I think. I've been to Muirwood in California. You see those like giant trees. And the hyssop, it grows on the ground. By the way, it's very interesting. This amazing, very small plant, that was the plant, it's called Pishtan. That was the plant that Cain brought sacrifice from. Yet Hevel brought from the best of his, cattle. You see the lowest level and the best level. And Hashem, of course, obviously liked the sacrifice of Hevel, and Cain became very jealous and murdered him. And of course, we know that this, the worm, and the hyssop, and the cedar, Hashem says, when you think you're that tall, humble yourself. Be as low as this hyssop. Because at the end, who will eat you is the worm. You're nothing but, afar va'efer. You'll return to the earth. And who is really controlling you at the end is the worm. So we have to understand, the Gaon Chida says, if you think you're proud as this tall redwood, this, cedar wood, humble yourself, be like the Azov, because at the end, you come in front of Hashem, your body remains behind and it's eaten by a worm. Meaning, chibut hakever, there's certain things that happen to us after our passing. And if you are really, afar va'efer, if you're really the son of Abraham and you understand the humility that he had and that you should have, you actually eliminate from you a lot of problems within the grave. Also, I want to bring here that when Abraham said that in Bereshit, it was in the book of Genesis in chapter 18, verse 27. Abraham says, "Vayan Avraham v'emar hinena ho'alti ledaber el Adonai v'anochi afar va'efer." Who am I? I'm nothing. And this is how we should be. And very interesting at the end, just so you know, Melech Lebanon, Hiram, he was one of the 10 people that went to the heaven alive. But he was so proud that he helped build Bet HaMikdash, he was removed and replaced by Rabbi Yoshua HaLevi. He was thrown out of heaven. He says, don't be so ga'aftan, don't be a show-off, because at the end, that's what will take you out of this world and the world to come. And we see today in the West Wall, which is the Kotel HaMaravi, the Wailing Wall, which we have today, a big celebration of the Israeli flag all over the world. We see even on the walls of the Kotel, you have this hyssop bush called the Azov, grows naturally on all heights of it, from the highest to the tallest. Nobody planted it there, by the way. This is something Hashem did to show us that when the Torah mentioned this plant, when you are humility, when you have this humility for yourself, when you're humble, you reach the height, you'll be at my home in the temple, in the Kotel, which is, King Solomon wrote that the Kotel will never be destroyed. And Hashem, Shekhinah, will be right behind it looking at you. Mina Charachim. Hashem says to reveal to King Solomon that even though I destroyed the whole temple because of what the people of Israel did, I rather destroy stone and wood, but not the people of Israel. I would leave my holiness, my Shekhinah, among those stones. So when people pray and come and cry in front of the Kotel or putting a note and doing everything that they need to do, there's the Shekhinah looks at them from the Charachim, from the opening between the stone of this amazing giant Kotel stones. This is really the humility of Azov. And of course, we know after all said and done, something amazing happened. The Torah says that you can pure Adam ki yamut, person Adam. The Torah used the word Adam. The great Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Kabbalah of the Zohar, he wrote in Masechet Yevamot, in the tractate of Yevamot, he says that Kivrei Ovdei Kochavim enan metamim ba'oel. He says you cannot be impure by the goyim. If you went into a cemetery of non-Jews, you don't get impure. They don't impure you. Why? It says, כי אתם אדם קרויים אדם, ולא עובדי כוכבים קרויים אדם. Shimon, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, זיכרונו לברכה, says only the Jewish people are called Adam. Many people say, what kind of thing to say? This is a very racist thing to say. Only the people of Israel are Adam. So he's actually right. And I will explain what does it mean. Adam, the entire Jewish people, Neshamot, came from him. The non-Jewish people in the world will come from what we call the sin of the snake and Eve. Those are different Neshamot. We are from Adam Arishon. All our Neshamot are actually what we call Netzutze Kedusha Shel Nishmat Adam Arishon. We are sparks of the Neshama of the first Adam. And that's why we're not getting impure at the Goyim, the Gentiles, death. If a person died, we went to a home of a non-Jewish, we don't get impure. So the Rabbi Meir Shapiro from Lublin, by the way, Rabbi Meir Shapiro is the one that we have to attribute and thank forever for the Daf Yomi. Rabbi Meir Shapiro, by the way, he was a student of the Chafetz Chaim, and he saw what's happening in Europe in the early 20s. And the Chafetz Chaim says the Holocaust is coming. Leave Europe, but nobody listened to him. And he did a gathering of all the Rabbanim in Europe. And Rabbi Meir Shapiro says to the Chafetz Chaim, I have an idea. Since a lot of the Jewish people are already assimilated in Europe, we lost many of them. Many of them got married to Goyot and Goyim, and the children are not Jewish. Let's start and reinstate a thing called Daf Yomi, so people can learn at least a page of Gemara a day. The Chafetz Chaim was so enamored with this that he actually asked him to come to this gathering of almost 2,000 rabbis in Europe in 1924 and asked him to come and wait until everybody's seated and then come into the hall. And the Chafetz Chaim says, I will introduce you and I want you to say that in front of everybody. This is the same Rabbi Meir Shapiro that started the Daf Yomi, and Baruch Hashem today, the whole world, we're doing Daf Yomi every day, Baruch Hashem. It takes 7 years to finish the Gemara, and we know we had last year in New York at the Met Stadiums, 130,000 people came that did a siyum, not to mention all over the world. So Rabbi Meir Shapiro brings, what is this Adam ki yamut ba'oel? Adam, as we mentioned, is the Jewish people. He says for the Goyim, there's 4 descriptions of a person in the Torah, in the Gemara, and in the world as a whole. Enosh is in singular mode. In many, it's anashim, people. Gever, meaning a man, not the hero, just a man, is gvarim, and geveret is gvirot, right, in singular. Ish is ishim, one person, many people. And of course, we know that we, in Adam, is really only in a singular mode. What does it mean? You cannot say Adamim, you cannot say Adamot, you can say Adam is one. And because of that, this kind of sentence, the Goyim got very angry. We know in 1911, there was a very, very big blood libel, so-called Alila, and horrific things for the people of Israel that actually was so jealous of the people of Israel. In 1911, 108 years ago, in the city of Kiev in Ukraine, a Russian city, there were drug dealers, gangsters that murdered the son of a stepfather, and murdered him, stabbed him 13 times. That's what the execution says, the tviyah. And they actually put the body at the factory of a Jewish man named Menachem Mendel Beilis, And this factory was, a brick factory, and he was the manager. And this murderer took the body of this young boy. His name, by the way, this boy named Andrei Yoshinsky, and they put him right in front of the factory that the Jewish person, Menachem Mendel Baylis, was the manager. And of course, immediately they start saying that the Jewish people killed this boy. There was one priest that was an anti-Semite at the highest level, and he went to the prosecutor and says, listen, I know what they're doing. They are actually murdering children, Christian children, and take their blood and make them for their matzot. It was before Pesach. And of course, this anti-Semite priest was the only one that can come and testify against the Jews. And he says, listen, I know the entire Talmud by heart. I'm a scholar of the Talmud. I learned what these Jewish people do, and I know they murdered him and used the blood. Of course, Baruch Hashem, Hashem has, even at the worst time, we can never lose hope. And as the trial was going on, there was a very smart young man, a lawyer that was a Ben Torah. He was also a Kollel Avrech, named Grunsberg. And Grunsberg was the defender. He would come to defend this young man. As we mentioned, it's called the trial of Baylis, by the way. It's the blood libel in Ukraine, in Kiev. And his name, Menachem Mendel Baylis, his prosecutor wanted to kill him. And of course, this amazing Avrech, the attorney, as I mentioned, named Grusenberg, came to save him. So they start hearing the testimony. And this priest, this, Mach Shmo V'Shem Zichro, this Catholic priest that was very much the biggest anti-Semite, said, listen, I know the Talmud, and I know you guys use the blood. He mixed the blood of, Bet HaMikdash to the blood of, using it for matzot, which is stupid, really, unbelievable lie. And he says, I know the whole Talmud. So this attorney, this Avrech attorney, Rabbi Grusenberg, says to him, the whole Talmud. Now, remember, this is hundreds of people watching this trial. It was a big, big thing. It actually hurt a lot of people in Europe, Jewish people. But as the trials begin, this attorney Grusenberg says, how am I going to do the best? I'll use what he says in his own words. He says to him, do you know the Talmud? So this priest said, yes, very much so. So he says to him, you know Baba Batra, the grandmother Baba? This priest says, yes, of course I know Baba Batra. He says, so how old was she when she died, and where is she? Buried. Where was she? How old? Where was she? Can you tell us more about her? Baba in Russian is grandma, Savta. And this idiot says, oh yeah, I know this grandma, Baba Batra. I just don't remember how old she was. I'll find out. So the attorney Grusenberg says to him, you silly man, there's not a woman. It's a Masechet. It's one of the 63 tractates of the Mishnah, the Gemara. And he actually disqualified him on the spot. And when the other prosecutor came, he says the boy was stopped 13 times. The attorney Grusenberg said, what are you talking about? There's only 12. And at the end, they found out that actually this Russian mafia killed the boy because his stepfather owed them money. Of course, but in the process, there was a horrific thing called blood libel that happened to also, as we know, the officer, the Jewish French officer in 1895, known as Alfred Dreyfus, the Dreyfus trial, the famous same thing. It was just a hate of Judaism and anti-Semite. And, he was freed at the end. If I'm not mistaken, the author Émile Zola wrote about all the details. And after all said and done. And by the way, just so you know, because of that, our sages in Europe says no more, you can use white wine for Kiddush. After the blood libel, there was a takana to be able to use white wine to say Kiddush and everything else. So we see that really, what's Adam? Adam, we are the Jewish people. When one person, Adam, only Mr. Baylis, was under attack, we were all under attack. It's the same neshama. But when the Goyim has attack, this in the Philippines and this in Gaza, or this in Hamas in Lebanon or Hezbollah or Iraq, they don't care about each other. The Arab kills each other all the time. Every day, thousands of them are murdered by their own so-called brothers of Islam. They kill each other. Nobody cares. But when it comes to a Jewish person, everybody cares, the whole world. That's what happened when they took, for an example, Gilad Shalit, one soldier. The whole world was talking about this one young man that was kidnapped. And we had to release 1,000 murderers, terrorists, just for one man. This is really Adam versus anything else. And we are Adam. We are care and Arevim to each other. We are each other's grantor. We come from the same neshama. When one of us hurt, we all hurt. So we know this is the portion of Parah Adumah, the red heifer. I want to go a little bit further and talk about, now as we mentioned, this parasha deals with 2 time period. The second year in the desert, Parah Adumah, and now is the 39th year, which is coming to the passing of Miriam. As we know, the well of Miriam started immediately within the first year outside. When the people of Israel came outside of Egypt, they actually got 3 gifts. One of them is the water well of Miriam. It was a rock that was rolling with them throughout the 40 years and providing them with water. And the water was coming and actually in masses, and each head of tribe would take his staff and draw water to his whole tribe. Imagine 3.6 million people in unison walking in a desert in, as we call, Ish al Diglo, each tribe with their own flag. This is appropriate for today's Mitzad HaDegalim, the beautiful Israeli flag all over the world. And we see that the water actually flew around every tribe, every tent of every tribe. You have 12 tribes situated around the Mishkan, the house of the Kohanim, the Levites, and you have 3 on each side, north, east, west, and south, which spell the word news. And the well of Miriam provided them with all the water and fruit. You had all Shivat Aminim in the desert. They had the 7 species of the land of Israel to do all the mitzvot. They had all kinds of, vegetables and fruit with this water, provided everything. And the second gift they had, the man. The man was an angel food, so to speak, that Moshe Rabbeinu asked for when he went up to the heaven. The angels don't eat food, but it's a spiritual food. But on earth, it was something you ate. Man came down for 40 years. And of course, just like the well of Miriam, it tasted like anything you want. The water of Miriam and the man could taste like anything you want. And this man, by the way, Maaseh Nisim, this food of angels, whoever ate it for 40 years never had to go to the bathroom. It's a pure food. There was no psolet in it. That was in the merit of Moshe Rabbeinu. And of course, in the merit of Aharon, the brother of Miriam, and Moshe, come the clouds of glory, the Shekhinah. The clouds of glory, by the way, there were 6 of them around, which is basically north, east, west, and south, one above and one below. And there was a 7th one just for the Mishkan, for the tabernacle. And these clouds of glory covered them throughout the desert, provided them with everything they need. And of course, after all said and done, the people of Israel never even said thank you, let alone even praised Miriam, Moshe, and Aaron. They always complain against them. As we know from the spies, through Korach, through Mitonenim, through the Mitlonenim, to Mei Meriva, to all kinds of things. Instead of saying thank you for providing this amazing, immense miracle, for 40 years they complained. They never once praised Miriam. Miriam, as we know, she actually, because of her merit, she protected Moshe at the water of the Nile. Nilus means low ness. She waited until Moshe was saved by the daughter of Pharaoh, so to speak, Batya. Batya made a conversion, going to the mikveh, taking Moshe. She saw him in a teva in Hebrew, in ark, And her name is Batya, is the same letter, measure for measure. Hashem says, you brought the light from the Teva, like Noah had the light come out and shine all over the world after the flood. So Moshe Rabbeinu came to the Teva, and Batya saw the light. She says, wow, look at this, must be a Hebrew boy, because he was already circumcised, and he saw the aura of Hashem. And she called him Moshe, spoke Hebrew all of a sudden. Hashem says, I like her. I'm going to use this name, Moshe, because his real name was Yekutiel. His mother Yocheved and his father Amram gave him the name Yekutiel, but Hashem says no. When a goy does a tshuva, they become actually better than chachamim, tzadikim. He says, "B'makom sheba'al tshuva omed, en tzadikim gemurim yocholim la'amod." When a person makes tshuva, if it's a convert of what we call ger tzedek, like Batya, she went up to the heaven alive. Hashem used her name that she chose for Moshe. And not the tzaddik Amram and Yocheved tzaddikim. So we see here, after all said and done, Miriam passes away. By the way, she passes away on the 10th of Nisan, 2487, a year before the entry to the land of Israel. And now the people of Israel have no water, and they complain. And of course, they complain. And they're actually about to kill Moshe and Aaron. And Moshe and Aaron, right now, by the way, they are in the Shiv'ah. They are in the Evel of Miriam. And the people of Israel want to kill them. That's exactly what happened. Make no mistake. When somebody is thirsty, you can survive without food for a long time. But water, very dangerous. You could die. And they say, how can you see Shiva and we are dying here, our children? They wanted to kill them. And Moshe and Aaron escaped to what we call Ohel Moed. This is the Mishkan, the tabernacle, to be saved. And of course, we know that Hashem says to Moshe and Aaron, I want you to go speak. Lechu v'dibartem el hasela. Ledaber, meaning to teach Torah. And I will bring my water out of it. But of course, Moshe Rabbeinu, in his state of mind, Aaron, first terrified for their lives, second in the morning, and the people complaining. And the Gemara says that those people was the Erev Rav, and they said to them, oh, make us a miracle, hit this rock, not the rock of Miriam. Let's see if really there is Hashem. It's how bad they got. And Moshe, out of anger, hit the rock twice. Moshe hika basela twice. He hit the rock twice. So, of course, we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu punished him and Aaron right here for not coming to the land of Israel. Why? Because you hit the rock versus talking to the rock, teaching Torah. Because Hashem says, Moshe says, I will bring you water, not Hashem. Instead of saying, Hashem yotzi lachem mod mayim. And really, he lost emunah and faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Not because that's what it is. Welcome. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, now the Gemara deals with the question, why Hashem punishes Moshe and Aaron together? So we know the Torah said that he actually hit the rock twice. Twice is not good. If you hit it once, the Gemara says Hashem will forgive. The Torah says, Ma'avir Rishon. Hashem forgive the first, but not the second. Because first is chet. Is something, a sin you do accidentally. Second one is bezadon. You do second. Moshe hit twice. Pa'amay mika basela. Hashem amar lo, ani solach lecha lechad al hasheni lo solach. I don't forgive the second. And here we see really the essence of Hashem. Ma'avir rishon, marbe mechila lachatayim uslicha laposheim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll forgive you for the first one, but I will definitely hold you liable for the second thing. And of course, we know now the people of Israel got water, everything okay, but the clouds of glory, the water will return. Moshe and Aaron were able to do tshuva and bring the water back. As we said, it was Selah. Selah, the Torah says, the rolling stone. You heard of the band, Rolling Stone? זה סלע ומרים, הוא היה מתגלגל איתם בכל המדבר. This rolling stone, הסלע היה מתגלגל, מוביל להם מים, 40 שנה. The Arizal הקדוש, זיכרונו לברכה, says that actually they took it to the land of Israel and put it in the Kinneret. The Sela Miriam is actually exactly right across from Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes. That's where all the tzaddikim went there. The Arizal used to take a student, go in a boat to a certain about, some say about 100, 150 yards from the water, the Kinneret, in front of Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes, Rabbi Akiva, all the tzaddikim there, used to take a water and says to the student, drink. There's the cup. There's the well of Miriam. They understood all the Zohar. Drinking. That's why it's called Chamei Tveria. Chamei from the word Chachamim. It's about very wise. So now Miriam passed away 10th of Nisan, 2487, the last year in the desert. And then Aharon will pass on the Aleph Be'av, the same year. Aaron and Miriam, as we know, Miriam and Aaron died with the kiss of Hashem. It's called Neshikat Hashem. And this is how Kadosh Baruch Hu treat the tzaddikim. Malach HaMavet don't come and take your neshama. Hashem comes and take it. And he says, Vatamot Sham Miriam, Vatikaver Sham Miriam. Sham and Sham is Shem Hashem. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I will take her like I did with Aharon. And of course now Moshe remains without brother and sister. And Elazar Kohen become the next Kohen. As of course, you know, Aharon was buried in Horahar. Horahar is a place right across the Jericho, Yeshet, Mashenikra, Arvot Moab, Arvot Yericho. The people of Israel at this moment standing across the Jordan River, and they will basically say goodbye to Aharon. Aharon will be buried in Horahar. They say 80,000 children named Aharon followed this, perception, this Kevurah on Aaron before he died. Aaron was Ish Shalom and made a lot of peace. הוא מנע הרבה גירושים בעם ישראל, וכל הילדים שנולדו קראו לו אהרון. 80,000 ילדים, אהרון, על כבוד אהרון, שומר שלום, אוהב שלום. And then Aaron passes, Elazar, his son, becomes the high priest. And of course, we know now when Aaron passed away, the Shekhinah moved. And protection, Shekhinah, it was, הייתה בצבא. מסך עשן, לא רואים את האויב. ענני השכינה, the clouds of glory removed, and all of a sudden, the Torah says, by the way, this is the prophet of the internet, internet, iCloud, iCloud, the clouds of glory, YouTube, like I showed you, everything on the mountain, on the clouds. But here it says, וישמע כנעני מלך ערד יושב הנגב, כי בא ישראל דרך האתרים. The Canaanite, by the way, here the Torah says, וישמע, הכנעני, it's actually not כנעני, it's עמלקית. עמלק, הוא היה העם היחידי שלא פחד מעם ישראל ומהשם. כשהclouds of glory move, כשענני השכינה זזו, פתאום רואים את עם ישראל. 3.6 מיליון אנשים ככה באוהלים ודגלים והכל. התחפשו לכנענים. They looked like Canaanites. באו להילחם בישראל. מפה צריך להתחפש בפורים. כל התחפושת של פורים זה מהפרשה. Here, this is the mitzvah of dress up on Purim is because the Amalekite dressed up like Canaanites. And he said they saw them derech ha'atarim. Atar, as we know, we have websites, atar, right? We say in Kaddish, v'chol atar ve'atar yehe lana. There's atarim kedoshim and atarim lo kedoshim that the Amalekite use. And that's how they do BDS against Israel. They do all the bats when we don't have the protection of Hashem. En Shechina, as atarim, משתמשים נגדנו. BDS. And we know, by the way, the first BDS in the world in the recent history, happened, הדבר הכי גרוע שקרה לעם ישראל באירופה, במיוחד בגרמניה, ראשון לאפריל 1933. April 1st, 1933, Hitler, יימח שמו ושם זכרו, start putting German soldiers on every business, Jewish business in Europe. Hitler says to the Jews, today is not Fool's Day, it's April 1st, 1933, Shabbat. What you open your business on Shabbat? Close your business, you're Jewish. Hitler says this to the Jewish people in Europe. Why do you open your business on Shabbat? And he put soldiers, BDS, don't buy from them. The laws of Nuremberg, there was Nuremberg laws in Romania and Poland and Germany. It was the 10th commandment for the Jews. Don't mix with the Goyim. Here we see that the Amalek, what's Amalek? Amalek come from different nations, right? The first Amalek came after the people of Israel left Egypt in Refidim, Rafu Yedehem. The people of Israel, Lo haya lahem mayim. They didn't have water for 3 days. They didn't have Torah for 3 days. Come Amalek. Amalek, come. Moshe prays, just raise his hand. Yoshua wins. Tefillah, menatzchim. Then they build a Mishkan, Baruch Hashem, after the first Amalek. The second Amalek comes in the time of Shaul. King Shaul, Shmuel said to him, kill all of them, even the children, the animals, everybody. Why? Because Amalek know how to shape-shift. You can fight somebody, become a goat. Islam kishuf. Only the Amalek know how to do that. And of course, we know the Torah says that they come, Vailachem beIsrael, Vayeshev mimenu shevi. One person Amalek took. Shevi is actually what happened with Shaul. Shevi, Shaul ba yecheta is the acronym Shevi. Shaul will sin with that. What is this? They say, Rashi said he took one female shivcha, Amalek, in the time of this, when it comes to fight the people of Israel. But when it comes with Shaul, Shaul didn't kill the king of Amalek. Shmuel HaNavi came and said, what have you done? For that, you're going to lose your kingship. Shmuel took his sword and cut the head of Amalek. But before that, Shaul sent the shivcha with food to the king of Amalek in jail. And they slept together. Haman came out. Haman. The grandfather of Haman came, Haman Agagi. So the second temple built after Amalek with Shaul. Come Haman Ashlishi, Amalek the third, with Mordechai and Esther, and Shushan Abira, Parasu Madai, Galut Bavel. Baruch Hashem, but they built the second temple. Right? So we have Mishkan, 2 temples. So the next time Amalek comes, which is now to the Knesset Israel, we'll build the 3rd temple, Bezat Hashem. בית המקדש השלישי יורד מוכן, לא צריך לבנות.
לחסוך.
כן. כאמור, דוד המלך says, ירושלים כעיר שחוברה לה יחדיו, יבוא מלמעלה ככה, בום. Baruch Hashem בקרוב. So we see here, Atarim is really internet. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, until the Torah came to this world, what's Bereshit? Amila Bereshit. Atar Yavesh. When there's no Torah, is a hollow ground, dry. The people of Israel left Israel 1953 years ago in the Galut, the second Galut, and by the Romans and the Greeks. And until then, the land was desolate. Nachon? Yeah, the land of Israel, almost 2,000 years, nothing grows. No matter how many nations, לא חשוב, Arabs, Turkim, Parsim, Anglim, Tzarfatim, Klum, nothing grows. 73 years ago, 1948, the Jewish people come back again. Look at us, Baruch Hashem, today. We even have Hamas in the Knesset. Because we have no Torah. But we have to understand something. It's all from Hashem. Akol b'yedei shamayim. We have to really look and wake up. Like we have this minister, Sonnenberg, what's her name? From Meretz. Zadenberg. She said, no tefillin. All of a sudden, millions of people do tefillin. Baruch Hashem. Ma'az yatsa matuk. The word Amalek is, as I mentioned, it comes from different countries, always. What's Amalek? Amalek is really within us. Amalek זה ראשי תיבות עם מועל לא קדוש. שאנחנו מועלים בקדוש ברוך הוא מביא לנו את העמלק. אנחנו מוציאים את ההשגחה של הקדוש ברוך הוא מאיתנו. We remove the Shekhinah, we remove Hashem's protection, we allow others to come and chaz v'chalila hurt us. So of course after Aaron leave, there is people dying and come the snakes. שני נחשים באו, two kinds of snakes. Snakes that bite and snakes that burn. נחשים וסרפים. נחשים וסרפים, what's the difference? So you know, Nachash, whoever spoke bad of Moshe was bitten by a snake. And whoever spoke bad against Hashem, the snake threw venom into their eyes and burned their eyes. נחשים וסרפים. Question is asked, נשאלת השאלה, למה הקדוש ברוך הוא שלח נחשים? To remind them of sin of the Nachash. The first sin in the world with human was with Adam, Chava, and the snake. נחש in גימטריה, משיח. נחש זה החיה היחידה שיכולה להרוג אותך ולרפות אותך. Snake can kill you and cure you. You can make the venom, the antibodies for the venom from the venom itself. So, you know, I want to finish with this, by the way. My family name, my name and my son's name in this parasha. You know, we're all in the Torah. We have a few tzaddikim here with us. יצחק בן אלה, בעזרת השם רפואה שלמה, השתלה של רואות בקרוב, הקדוש ברוך הוא יזכה אותו מהר, כהרף עין לרפואה שלמה. A big tzaddik, what he does in Israel, helping a lot of people, and is this friend, Oriel, Kodesh Kodashim of Ben Adam, Baruch Hashem, welcome.
Ben Esther.
So, Ben Esther, בעזרת השם, and Rabbi, what's your father's name? Natan, Baruch Hashem, קודם כל יברך אתכם, שליחי מצווה here in San Diego. So Be'ezat Hashem, I want to just finish with that, just in honor of my family, my father, and my mother. Be'ezat Hashem, it says in the Torah, Vayarem Moshe et Yado. Vayarem otiyot Yoram. Hashem Shem. My name is Yoram, is the otiyot Vayarem. The Zohar Kadosh says when you have a name, when a father and a mother and if Hashem decide on the name, they together have a name. The name, they gave me Yoram. Yud Vav Ram, La'arim et Shem Hashem. And this is from Vayarem, raise Hashem's name. Otiyot Yoram. My son named Nes. Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, take the Nes. What's Nes? Is the Mateh. Mateh is Moshe Aaron, as we know. He says, put Nechoshet, snake on him. Nechoshet and Nachash is the same. One Nachash with Torah, one Nachash without Torah. But if you look at the Nechoshet, if you look at the Torah, it will be a Nes, my son. It says in the Torah, Vayasimu al hanes. They put him on the miracle. Hashem can cure you just by looking at the Torah. The Zohar says when we say Vezot Torah, we go like this. The Zohar says, the Kabbalah, that the Torah takes picture of all the people there. Otiyot Torah. And of course, the last thing, my last name is Dahan, Baruch Hashem. The Torah says here, Derech HaMelech Nelech, Rashi Tevot Dahan. In the way of the King Hashem we shall walk. This is Dahan, my father used to say that. And Be'ezat Hashem, after the people of Israel understood what they've done, and they come to their senses, it says, Vayechan Sham Israel Neged Hahar. You know, in the book of Shemot, chapter 19, it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, before he gave the Torah, the people of Israel stood Ke'am Echad, Vayachan, and Hashem had chen on them. So Be'ezat Hashem, may Hashem will have chen of us in these days and return us to his glory, ונבוא בעזרת השם, משיח בן יוסף ומשיח בן דוד, בעזרת השם, ונעלה כולם לצרף, וכולם, אתה לא צריך ניתוח בעזרת השם. אם מגיע המשיח, אתה תהיה בריזו.
אני מחכה.
בעזרת השם. Thank you so much. I'm Rabbi Dahan here, כולל אהבת ישראל, ברוכים הבאים in San Diego. Please join us here and online. Please share the class, our website, neshatorah.org. תודה רבה, and again, thank you to Partners in Torah, in 1,500 cities around the world, Mr. and Mrs. Selwyn Isako, and thanks to the JCC and all of you for being with us. Please share the class. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of the week and join us again. Toda rabba. Shavua tov.
תודה, שבוע טוב. קיווית רבנו?
עוד לא.